Welcome to Movies Are Life. I'm your host, Nathan Chandler. And could we be any more excited to talk about the legacy of Matthew Perry? Whitney is joining me today as we remember Perry's wit, charm, and impeccable comedic timing, which left an indelible mark on the world of entertainment. From his unforgettable role as Chandler Bing on the beloved TV series Friends to his various film and stage performances, Perry's talent and charisma captivated audiences around the globe, and today we're going to dive into one of his most memorable films and one of my favorites, The Whole Nine Yards. But before we do that, well, first off, Whitney, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. We've had a rough football weekend.
Yep, rough football weekend, rough week. Sure sad about the passing of Matthew Perry. That's just, it was a tough one for me to take. I'm such a Friends lover. And Chandler was my all-time favorite character. I'll have more to say about that.
Yeah, for sure. And
then my Sooners lost.
Yeah. Well, before we jumped into the movie, I thought we could take a second just to talk about Matthew Perry. And, I mean, there's always celebrities. I mean, all people pass away, right? But, celebrities and people make the Facebook, post about them. But I would say just specifically with Matthew Perry and probably our friends that are around our age, our generation, you could tell this one kind of hit a little differently. Oh, why do you think that is?
Well, I just think that they definitely loved him on Friends, and Friends was just such a part of our generation's upbringing and life that people still have it on in the background every day or when they fall asleep or whatever it may be. But Chandler was for sure, he was at least my favorite. His sarcastic humor, his physical humor. I mean, he was the best. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's the reason I married you was for the last name Chandler, but it was definitely a reason for me to go out with you in the first place.
Yes.
And then when I found out that your middle name was Ross, my mom about fell out of her chair and was like, if only his first name was Joey, you would be all in. We wouldn't have even had to wait to get engaged and married. But anyway, I mean, it sealed the deal when it was Nathan Ross Chandler. But Chandler was a very big upswing for me going out with you. Not to marry you, but for that.
Yeah. No, I had friends in college who would always call me Chandler Ross Bing.
Yeah.
And things like that. Joey, for some reason, kind of disrupts the flow of it.
It does. It would have been a terrible name if your name was Joey Ross Chandler.
It's hard to kind of throw in Tribbiani in there as well. Mm-hmm. So why do you think, and I thought it'd be good to talk about this movie because we both read, more so listened to Matthew Perry's memoir that came out not too long ago called Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, which is an incredible listen because I especially like memoirs or biographies when the actor themselves or the person, whoever wrote the book, it's in their own words because you can feel it. So, that came out not too long ago. And so I think that's kind of part of his passing that kind of really hit everybody because he definitely seemed like he was in a good place. But part of the reason I wanted to talk about this movie because I do think, and he was constantly, and it's always somebody who gets pinned, I'm sure someone like Michael Richards who played Kramer or just, these TV characters. And for a show, Friends was on for 10 years, and people just develop deep relationships with these characters. And so I thought it'd be a good chance to talk, about, because I think he's wonderful in this movie. And so, but a lot in the book, he talked about how, the struggle to always not just be known as Chandler Bing. But that being said, why do you think his character was so beloved?
Well, I think just because he showed so many faults and made fun of himself, and I think everybody likes it when somebody makes fun of themselves. Honestly, because of his tact, just the way he inflicted words. But the first time, he talks about it in his book, but the first time that he said, my favorite is when he's got on all of Joey's clothes and he says, "Could I be wearing any more clothes?" But he said it all the time, and that just instantly soared him to an iconic status. And just the way he danced or did anything. They obviously never showed it because he didn't really have a third nipple. But, I mean, anytime I see him do that dance, all I can think about is that third nipple. And I'm like, how did they do that? It was a mysterious third nipple. And you really, I believed he had it. He maybe does. But that book, I loved listening to it, and I think it would make you sad. It was kind of sad to read about, but when he came back on that reunion show, he looked so bad, it like broke my heart. Mm-hmm. He just looked awful, and I guess I knew he was kind of in rough shape, but I didn't understand how rough until that reunion. But listening to the book helped me realize that he was trying to deal, why he looked so bad, and I still was just sad for him, but it was good to listen to, but it was hard. It was hard for me to imagine somebody, because I still think of him as Chandler, and so you think of him as that, and it was hard to read, but anyway, it was good.
It definitely, after reading it, I mean, I think everybody has been touched by somebody in their life who has dealt with addiction on some kind of level. And that's why the book is kind of partly heartbreaking too. But also, by the end, you kind of feel uplifted by it, because, he seemed like somebody who hopefully had come out on the other end. So that's kind of what made this news, that much more tragic.
Yeah, and we still don't know what happened. And
right.
I mean, we're speaking from this before they've released what happened, but they originally said there wasn't drugs on the scene and that he had been sober. And from everything that he had talked about in the book, his physical state and his healthy state was just so bad that he very well could have had like a medical emergency in the water, and it not be that he had a relapse.
Yeah.
He also was oftentimes suicidal, and so we don't know. It's all speculation, but I would like to think that it wasn't something that he relapsed on, and it sadly was just a tragedy of his own making, but still just a tragedy. He always seemed to have in the book people around him, an assistant or a friend that had become a life assistant to kind of be at his house, and that person had left for a little while and come back, and so just you feel for those people. He had surrounded himself with like a village of people, and so I feel bad for those people too.
Yeah. So. In the book, like, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of actors go through the TV avenue, to get to movies, and not just Matthew Perry, but all the quote unquote friends, try to make it on the big screen for whatever reason. And Matthew Perry, even though like with this movie was a pretty successful hit, still probably didn't become the movie star that he always imagined himself being, and had to retreat, I would think, to a lot of like TV roles. One he's known for is Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, which is a Aaron Sorkin TV show. It only lasted one season. I remember really liking it. It's kind of the behind the scenes of Saturday Night Live. But then do you remember when Mr. Sunshine, that show that came out? And we always, I think he was on a CBS sitcom revival of The Odd Couple, but we were big fans of The Good Wife, and I can't remember if he made appearances on The Good Fight, but he would always show up. He played an attorney on there. He was always really good and really steady, but it's really break
out of that character.
It's really, really hard to break out of that character. But we were trying to decide what movie to kind of focus on. I was trying to decide between this and Fools Rush In. I think those are definitely the two. I mean, he did some other ones, but even in his memoir, he talked about like when he was doing Serving Sarah with Elizabeth Hurley, that he was he doesn't even basically remember even shooting that film. So, but yeah, did you have an affinity to Fools Rush In?
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked it, but I can't remember any parts of it. I would have to like go back and rewatch it, but I have an affinity towards anything that any of the six of them do, because I fell in love with the characters of Friends, but I actually don't think any of them are very good in the other stuff that they do. Maybe Jennifer Aniston has done a few that are good. Courtney Cox, I actually could start to see her in that show she was in.
Cougar Town?
Cougar Town. Cougar Town was like the one show I could see her character change and start to love her for something else, and that was maybe one of the only ones. And then Joey playing himself as Matt LeBlanc on episodes.
Yeah.
I loved it, but he was essentially playing himself. And so, but those are the only ones that I can like notably speak about as playing other characters. We're currently watching The Morning Show, and I can't get over I want Jennifer Aniston to look like the beautiful Jennifer Aniston that we remember from Friends, but because of all of her Botox, she looks terrible. And so I cannot get past her not being Friends. And so I don't think she's done a very good job at that.
Yeah.
That really wasn't where I was supposed to segue, I realized, but
no, no, this is good. Lisa Kudrow, she's done several TV projects, and those have actually been pretty successful. She almost seems, out of all of them, the more grounded actor, I would say, of them.
Yeah.
And she kind of does short series, and then she's out. It seems like, she's totally comfortable in what she's doing. And then David Schwimmer, he's actually done a lot more. He's directed a lot more than he has acted. He still does acting things here and there, but yeah.
In the book, Matthew Perry always talked about how I always thought of David Schwimmer as the goofier one and the one that maybe wasn't as talented as the other 5, just because he's so goofy. Mm-hmm. And that Matthew Perry talked about how he was actually the most professional of any of them, that they were all like in his wake, like behind him a few steps, and that he always had the funniest comedic timing, and that he was like always ready, never missed a line. And I had to go back and like rewatching Friends under that like lens. I was like, oh, I just couldn't, I couldn't even imagine that. Cause even though I loved Ross and Rachel and they were my favorite characters, I would never, Ross like drove me crazy because he was supposed to drive you crazy.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, I did one thing to kind of go back to. We rewatched Friends maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and one thing that we were both surprised with, and I think maybe one of the reasons why Chandler Bing was so memorable, is like kind of in your brain with Chandler and Monica getting together was like later on in the season, and it was actually pretty early on that they were together.
Like one of the like season 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Like season 3. It was crazy.
And the show did really good with his character of keeping that sarcasm intact and his basically always being in his head and all that, but really melding him into kind of the family man, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason people liked that character so much. It was just because it almost like, even when you see a guy in his early 20s who seems like a mess, it seemed like it was somebody who could always kind of bloom into an actual human being,
Yeah.
So we're going to journey into the wild and, I guess, I don't know if it's fair to say, humorous world of contract killing, but we're going to jump into the whole 9 yards.
That's Jimmy the Tulip Tedeschi. Jimmy the Tulip was a hitman. Sexy. Sophie, the man's killed 17 people.
Let's go for a drive.
A drive? Look, Jimmy, I certainly don't want to die.
You better get used to it because you're going to.
What?
Everybody dies. Sooner or later.
The Whole 9 Yards is a 2000 American crime comedy film directed by Jonathan Lynn and distributed by Warner Brothers. It is written by Mitchell Kapner and stars Bruce Willis, Matthew Perry, Amanda Peet, Michael Clark Duncan, and Natasha Henstridge. Its story follows a mild-mannered dentist as he travels to Chicago to inform a mob boss about the whereabouts of his new neighbor, a former hitman with a price on his head. The film was released on February 18th, 2000. The film received mixed reviews from critics, but it grossed $106 million. And a sequel, The Whole 10 Yards, was released in 2004. Did you see the sequel?
I did. I forgot about it until you just said that out loud, and then I was like, light bulbs went off. But I don't remember. I mean,
yeah.
Same with this one. I remembered it as we went, and I could remember that something was about to be funny that happened, but I didn't remember it.
Yeah. The Whole 10 Yards was. It really had bad reviews. It did really, really bad. And I, like you, I think I saw it, but I cannot tell you a thing about it.
Were the same people in it?
Well, Matthew Perry was in it, and I know Kevin Pollak was in it, who played, well, I know that's probably already what makes sense. I think he played the brother of the mobster Gogolak or whatever his name that got killed. And so that was already kind of like, wait, you're cast the same actor to play his twin brother or something.
So this was 2000 because
yes.
I listened and you said that.
Yes.
2000.
Yes.
But when was Bruce Willis on Friends? Because did Bruce Willis go on Friends because Matthew Perry and he were in the movie together? Like, that's all I kept thinking that. And of course I didn't go look it up. But.
Well, so... You're like, you're kind of just jabbing at my research here. So, okay.
Sorry.
Well, it looks like Matthew Perry said that Bruce Willis's Emmy-winning role in Friends happened because the Die Hard star lost a bet to the sitcom actor, I think from when they worked together on this movie.
Well, there you go.
Oh, yeah, because that was in the book.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was watching it. It just reminded that their characters were kind of similar to that on the mob boss show.
Yeah. So they became friends on from this movie,
Yeah.
and so that's how that developed. So anyway, Yahoo for the internet.
And our producer. Thanks, producer.
So falling down on the job, gonna have to fire that guy. But, yeah. So it had probably been a while since you had seen this movie.
Yeah.
What'd you think about it?
I liked it. It was fun. When I first started, I thought, oh yeah, this isn't very good. Like, cause like it's older looking. You realize how old it is.
It's funny how a 2000 film feels dated.
Yeah, it felt real dated. We were showing it to Hallie, and I was like, oh, we're gonna lose her because it felt real dated. But then there's a lot of people in it, and that are great. I love Amanda Peet always.
Yeah.
And I thought Bruce Willis was fun in this. I
Cast
thought he
very
played
well.
a great
Yeah.
person. I guess I'm supposed to hate his wife, but I definitely hate his wife.
Played by Rosanna Arquette.
And I you never really answered this, but were you supposed to hate her French accent? Was she doing it terrible, or was she supposed to be doing it terrible?
Supposed to be over the top. Yeah.
I hated it so much. I mean, I've always hated her, but I think I hate anybody that does that French accent and sounds dumb. Like, because I'm not meaning like if she was French, I don't think she's smart, but just the whole thing, it makes her sound dumb, and she's mean, and all I can think is that she smells like smoke.
Yeah, you're not supposed to like her, so
I know. Well, I didn't. Anyway, but there's a lot of it's just straight up goofy, and I don't think you can make a movie today anymore that's that over the top cheesy. But I really like that they just lean into all of it.
Yes.
That each of them are out to kill the other one, and I think that it's a good premise where you're like, he's just a nice guy. He plays his normal Chandler character right in the heart of when Friends was on, so he had to have played that character. Like, nobody would have liked it if he was the mean guy.
Right.
Yeah. It wouldn't have gone over.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought it was good.
Yeah, no, this is just a movie that we were both at Baylor when this movie came out, so I don't even know when.
Well, I shouldn't have been at Baylor anymore, but I was.
No, it came out in 2000.
Yeah, I should have graduated. Oh no, 2000. Yeah, I'm not that old. What's wrong with me? Yeah, good call.
So I don't know how I ended up seeing this movie, but it just really just played into my comedic senses. And I still do. I love the physical humor in this movie, and I think a lot of those scenes are kind of what stills it. But I've always liked. I know you haven't seen Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, but I've always kind of liked these crime elements. There was another movie, Analyze This, with De Niro and Billy Crystal, that played on this like mafia guy who has a conscience all of a sudden, and so really playing with that and stuff.
I always like it when a mafia type movie or a crime movie has such a simple plot that everybody can follow it. Like, I can't stand it when movies go into this deep, like, technical type of like crime where you can't follow it and they're trying to confuse you because they don't really have a great story. Like, I like this movie because it's just A to B to B to C.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's like there's no deep. It's not. It doesn't fall into this like hardcore criminal act that you've got to like chase down the puzzle. You're like,
right,
it's just like going.
Yeah. It really reminded me, and I don't know if this makes sense to you. It almost like this movie could almost act as like a stage play.
Yeah, that's what it's
Does
so
that
cheesy.
Make sense?
Yeah,
yeah. It just
probably wanted to be
the way that characters kind of run into each other and in the same places and stuff like that. And so, but also there was this element I kind of realized watching it this time. It was almost like I felt like the director was almost trying to make this like a film noir type, like mixed with comedy, because when Matthew Perry falls in love with Jimmy the Tulip's wife, played by Natasha Henstridge, their dialogue and their back and forth, she has she's always in a super fancy, dress and smoking cigarettes, and he has these he doesn't actually say, "Here's looking at you, kid," but he has he says, like, "I will love you like no one has ever loved you before." It has these elements a little bit of that, but the movie's never dark, really, like as the way it's shot. So it's kind of a little weird, those scenes, how they play out, because that's one thing. I mean, I like them together in this, but like, I can see why he would fall in love with her. I don't quite see why she would fall. He was so nice, I guess.
I will say that, I mean, she's beautiful.
Yes.
And I don't know her, I know her, but I can't place what other stuff she's in. But she's beautiful. And yes, like you can see why he would instantly fall in love with her, which I think is good casting. But she's been around crime people her whole life.
Yeah.
And so, like, to have somebody that's truly, like, not trying to kill her, or also not a mob boss or whatever, like, she's like, oh, this guy would choose me over the money. Like, what? And so I can kind of see how a female, but also I love Chandler. So
yeah,
that's why.
Well, I probably secretly kind of enjoyed this movie too. I think even growing up, because I have always been pinned as someone who's the nice guy, and there's a running through line of this, and how they just saw he has this, they like, he's so nice, like how could we kill this guy? And I always like that element.
You're just glad you wouldn't be killed?
Yeah, I think so. I'm like, well, I guess
nobody would kill you.
Yeah.
That's how I felt like you were in high school. You were like, I don't know, I might not have been the coolest, but nobody was going to shove me in a locker.
No. No.
People liked me.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you're cool.
Oh, yeah. So, I definitely, and I think watching this, I mean, we talked about the cast. Michael Clark Duncan as Frankie Figs. He's great in a lot of stuff.
And 7 Minute Abs was in there.
Oh, yeah.
From Something About Mary.
Yeah.
Can't do abs in 7 minutes.
So he's in...
Actually, it was 6 minutes.
Yeah.
7 minutes are the only ones you can do, but I kept referring to him in the movie as 7 Minute Abs guy.
And Kevin Pollak, who we mentioned, who's a great comedic actor, who's been around, a character actor that's been around a long time. And especially watching this movie, as far as I was kind of going into it this time going, okay, I mean, we always have liked Matthew Perry. He's the focal point of this. Probably, I don't know if there's many scenes where he's not, in the movie. And I mean, Matthew Perry really carries this movie because he's got so many people around him. I mean, including Bruce Willis, who is a force to be reckoned with. I would assume, if you're like acting in the same room as him. And I think even like Amanda Peet, who hadn't done a lot of stuff up here, I think she has a charisma that jumps out from this movie too. But it almost made me more sad, because I really think probably a lot of it had to do with his issues. But like, I mean, I really think he could have gone somewhere with with some kind of movie. It just, even though this one was successful, it didn't probably launch the career that he was hoping to get.
Sure.
And it's a very funny movie, kind of nice movie, but probably,
it's not going to win an award.
It's not going to win an award.
But we're still talking about it 23 years later.
Yeah, but his passing probably didn't bring up this movie. It still brought up Chandler Bing, but
well, that's too iconic.
Oh yeah,
It's like saying
it's
Jerry Seinfeld
iconic.
is just like, Seinfeld is Seinfeld. I mean, that they don't make a show now that's a sitcom that is going to live on forever.
Yeah.
We all watch different sitcoms, and we may like them for the 8 episodes that they are, but they're not what they were back then.
Yeah.
And that must-see TV was not gonna. I mean, you can't not talk about that.
Yeah. No, very much. But I love the humor in this movie, the physical humor, him when he runs into the lamp, even when him throwing up at the toilet, for some reason his action works with that.
Yeah.
I laughed too at the beginning of this, when he's leaving his house, he's depressed just about his how awful his wife and mother-in-law are, and when he just bangs the car steering wheel in frustration. And I laughed too, because I basically flat out stole that for the film I made at Baylor.
Yeah.
So anyway, any scenes that you thought were funny? It's probably
I mean, I really like him. You named a bunch of the ones, but we went back and laughed. I guess when he knocked the lamp over is when he runs into the big he runs into the bodyguard at the hotel and he falls backwards.
Yeah.
But we rewound that a couple times for Hallie because she loves humor like that. We did watch this with Hallie, but it is rated R, and so we fast forwarded the like sex scenes because there are sex scenes she couldn't see.
Right, yeah.
But it otherwise the humor of it was funny.
Yeah, yeah. Even when they're in the hideout room and they're supposed to be quiet, and he just sits on that like almost. It wasn't a beanbag, but
and it makes all that noise.
yeah. One thing I always liked in this movie was the quote when they're in the restaurant and Bruce Willis says,
It's not important how many people I've killed. What's important is how I get along with the people that are still alive.
I just always like that. This movie has several lines like that it's just a good script, I think.
When they first meet, Amanda Peet and Bruce Willis, and Chandler is watching them interact about how like excited she is that he's a killer, and she's like, I'm a killer too, I'm trying to get into the industry, and his face is like, he just makes this great face, like surprise face, and he's just like, are you kidding me? Like, and he's just like, can't believe there's more of them. And then he's like, what's wrong with me that I'd never have thought about killing anybody?
Yeah.
It's just funny.
Movie Musings.
Whitney, are you scared of the dentist?
No. I always like the dentist. But I have a great story for you.
Oh, real quick before you start the story, you just gave me a face like
you just cut me off.
I know, but I just want to set up that Matthew Perry character in here. He's a dentist, and dentistry plays a big part in this whole plot. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm not scared of the dentist. I've always liked him. My brother Jeff, on the other hand, is terrified of the dentist, and he's 6 years older than I am. So I'm always remember him as the little, like I'm the little sister, and I go to his stuff well before it was time for me to go to the things. So he had to go and get 2 teeth pulled, and we had to leave because they couldn't hold him down, and they were trying to give him like laughing gas or something. And I remember it being dark outside, so it must have been like right at 4 or 5, like right when the sun's like going down. But they can't get him under control. So my mom and I are in the parking lot. I have no idea where my dad is during this episode, but my mom and I are in the parking lot. We can hear him screaming bloody murder. And he is like losing it, but he has to get his teeth pulled. Instead of that scaring me, all I remember thinking is like, what is wrong with him? Like, they just did whatever they did to me and I was fine. But I didn't have any teeth pulled. I don't know what. But like, I just remember like always thinking like, what is the matter with him? But he freaked out. And I think it's kind of similar to my firstborn. Hallie freaks out anytime there's a medical, and Hayden, our youngest, is like, whatever, I'm fine. And that's kind of what it did to me, is it just made me look at him like, what is the matter with you? But I like the dentist. I was fine. Makes my teeth feel clean to go.
There you go. Yeah.
Are you scared? You're scared of the dentist.
I'm not scared of the dentist. You're
scared of the dental hygienist? That's who hurts your mouth.
No, I'm not scared. I'm just always just afraid that they're just gonna find something. That's what it just always feels like to me. And I
had to have like an expander, and my dad would have to turn that key every night. Where you'd have to lay back, he'd take that key and turn it. Oh, that was brutal. Maybe I was scared of my dad after that, but I had braces. I had the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. nice callback.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I actually, our dental hygienist now, she's actually made me want to go back. Like, and she's about to have her second kid, and I she's about to go on leave, and so I made sure next time. I don't think she'll be there for my next appointment, but I was like, "You're coming back, right?"
Yeah.
So so another thing that plays in this movie, this movie's set in Montreal, Quebec, so in Canada. So this was one of the first mainstream American movies actually filmed on location in Canada, which is kind of interesting, but. In it, they kind of talk a little bit about the culture. One, which in being that when they order a hamburger, they apparently put mayonnaise on the bun with it, and so Bruce Willis's character expresses his fury behind this. So I was just wondering, do you hate mayonnaise or mayonnaise on hamburgers?
No, I actually really like it.
Yeah,
but for whatever reason, like in high school, this is why you can't ever mention food choices to young girls. But somebody told me how bad mayonnaise was for you. And so even though I think it tastes good, I just can't stand it when they like put a lot of mayonnaise. So I just like a tiny bit. Probably I would like a lot because I like the taste of it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I've just been scarred by that for my whole life.
Yeah.
So don't do that to people.
Yeah. I don't mind when I get a hamburger, I tend to just think of ketchup, but if mayonnaise is on there as well, it doesn't bother me at all. It actually, when I was writing this question, I guess a little shout out to my grandfather, it just made me think of this moment that he would always ask for the salad dressing in reference to mayonnaise, which it's considered
a dressing.
A dressing, yeah. But I just have that memory of him always being at the table asking for the salad dressing and not meaning ranch or Thousand Island or whatever like that. So I had my last movie musings is kind of a segue, kind of away from this movie. So are there any other final thoughts you have about the whole 9 yards? Like, kind of, is this something that's, I would say it's a good, I mean, this is definitely a Matthew Perry like role. I mean, he embodies the character very well.
Yeah. So in honor of him, I would go watch it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I enjoyed rewatching it. It was fun. But otherwise, if you haven't ever seen it, you're like, you know, you're not maybe missing out on anything like that's going to win an award, but you'll laugh and have a good time, and it's a good rainy day afternoon movie to turn on.
Yeah, for
Fold
sure.
your laundry to it.
Yeah, for sure. So my third question, just kind of, so we talked about the whole 9 yards, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but Matthew Perry, who played Chandler Bing, is there a favorite Chandler Bing moment that you have from Friends?
So many. I have so many. But my ultimate that I do all the time is just with Chandler, like that whole scene of them, I already said this, but trying on the clothes, like that's my like ultimate one, when they're trying on all the clothes and they're like, not touching, can't get mad, not touching, can't get mad. Like that's like my all-time favorite. But I think that there's tons of scenes where he's either, when they're in the competition to win the apartment, and the way that they just like jump up and down and nobody ever knows what his job is, and like I think there's just tons of like funny little things that he does all the time, and I just think I just think he's great in each of the scenes, putting the turkey on their head, like all those things. As far as like, it's just, I think he's great.
Yeah, well, probably not. I wouldn't put this in this as like one of the top 10 moments, but I still always think about it all the time because it just embodies the character so well. And it was early on in Friends when he's trapped in the bank ATM when the electricity goes out, and he's stuck with that model or whatever like that. And when she asked if he'd like a gum, he said, "Gum would be perfection."
Yeah.
And then how the voiceover
Gum would be perfection. Yeah.
And how his voiceover comes in just about, I mean, to me that just embodied that character perfectly, you know.
Recommendations.
Any recommendations of anything that you've been watching? I know you've been watching Sweet Magnolia.
Oh, that's the worst show on television. I hate it so much. But when you do stuff and you're not here and I need something to turn on, I just turn on the worst show possible. That's Sweet Magnolia. No, we're watching Starstruck, and I have loved Starstruck. If you've never seen it, you should go back and watch season 1 and 2, because this is the third season something, and Max. I never know what anything's on. Thank you to Nathan. But Starstruck is amazing. It's funny, and we're watching it right now. And I actually loved the end of The Marvelous Miss Maisel. To be honest, it was hard for me to finish that.
Yeah.
But because it's like it couldn't get there. It was a little slow in the middle for me. But the last 2 episodes of Miss Maisel were great, and I thought it was a good wrap up.
Yeah, you finally get to see the big break that leads her to actually be famous, and I mean, it completely paid off.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Yeah, it very good finale.
Yeah.
Like, it would have to be up there with one of the best TV finales. I've told you a little bit about this movie, but it's on streaming on Apple TV Plus right now. But Flora and Son, it's
the one you watched without me.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah. But this is part of the reason. It's a musical comedy drama film. I was just
that sounds exactly like things I would want to watch. A musical comedy drama film.
Yeah, but you've mentioned so Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in it. and you said you were kind of iffy. You made fun of 500 Days of Summer and how much I liked that movie. So I don't know if he would. He's a slight love interest in this movie. So
Does he write these himself? No. How does he become the love interest?
Well, but also, the real star of this movie is Eve. I think this is how you say her last name, Hewson. But you would recognize her, Whitney. She played the youngest sister in Bad Sisters.
Oh.
Yeah, so this movie is set...
That's strike number 2 for you watching it without me.
Yeah, I know. So, but this was set in Dublin, Ireland.
Oh.
But
if you never watched Bad Sisters, go back and watch Bad Sisters. Yeah, carry on.
Good show. But basically, she's a single mom, young single mom, and so her son Max, he's like a junior or senior in high school, and they have a really fraught relationship. But she's really tough and hard-edged as well, and she decides to basically pick up the guitar, and she takes these lessons from Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. So it's just kind of about that, but then she connects with her son through his love for music, even though it's a different style than her sense of music. But the same director, his second film was Sing Street, which was...
Do you think he really knows how to play the guitar?
Who, Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, definitely. He does. So, but the director here, John Carney, his first movie was Once.
Uh-huh.
You remember that movie? And his second film, Sing Street, was another underseen but really great film. So there's some really great songs in here.
I think I saw Sing Street without you.
No, you
yes,
didn't.
I did.
I vividly remember we watched it at your parents' house for whatever reason. I just remember everybody fell asleep and I went ahead and finished it, and I loved it.
I think I liked it too.
Yeah. I would like to play 3 songs for you and see if you could actually pick out the song that was from the movie.
No. This is not part of the show.
We probably talked about this way too long. The sea, Flora and Sun. This, you just dogged on Sweet Magnolia, so you could just watch this movie like instead of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, as always, check out moviesarelife.com for episode reviews and more. If you love this podcast, please take a moment to rate and review it. It really helps us with finding new listeners. And did you know that you can support us? Did you know that, Whitney?
I did.
Yeah.
I do support you.
Yeah. There's a link in the in many ways. There's a link in the podcast description. We'd really appreciate it. And your help, whatever you could contribute, would go a long way. I think you should keep the love up for Matthew Perry alive. You could watch this movie. Maybe throw up one of your favorite Friends episodes. I saw that TBS was doing like a Chandler Bing marathon. But we would love to hear your thoughts either on this movie or Matthew Perry or on social media. We would love to hear your feedback. Any closing thoughts?
Nope. Could it be any later? Could I be any funnier?
Whitney's really getting tired of these late night recording sessions.
Yeah. No kidding. Could I be any more supportive?
That's a good way to end.